Hello, welcome to the Joy of Cooking with Michelle. Today, it's feeling like fall. The weather's changed and it's time for soup again. So I'm going to show you how to make my version of Ribollita. So welcome everybody who's joining us live. Ribollita is an Italian dish. It's a soup. What it means is to reboil. And what that means is that the dish is always better, like most soups, when it's eaten the second day, because all the flavors have an opportunity to blend. Now, what I have done already ahead of time, I want to show you, I have sauteed some celery, 2 celery stalks, 2 carrots, 4 garlic cloves, and a large onion. And I used a little bit of an olive oil because that's what I think they would use in Italy. And I sauteed that until the onions were tender and translucent. That's typically the beginning part of cooking of any soup in Italy. It's very, very typical. So what we have here today is some things that I have pre-chopped up. And this is a very interesting version sent to me from Skylar. So thank you, Skylar, from Dr. Greger's cookbook on how not to die. So that's kind of funny, but he believes that more plant-based nutrition is better for us and will help us live longer. So I'm going to go with that. I am trying to encourage more plant-based nutrition because this is what the food guide is also encouraging us. And it's great for our health, and it's so helpful for us to maintain our weight also. So they use some different ingredients, and that Dr. Greger uses nutritional yeast, which is a great source of protein and also a great source of vitamin B12. So we are adding a little bit of nutritional yeast, which is not traditional Italian. And the other thing is that they use a special bean. It's called, what's it called? Cannellini. And the cannellini bean is like an oversized type of lima bean type thing. So they're flat like this, and we need 2 cans of that. We need a can of chopped tomatoes, and we use all the juice, so please don't drain it. They use a Savoy cabbage, and this is interesting because the Savoy cabbage that's used is leafier. What I've done is, instead of going to Farm Boy and looking for the special cabbage, I thought instead of buying a green cabbage or a purple cabbage, which is more compact and often leaves your soup tasting a little bitter, that I bought a Napa. It's a Napa cabbage, so it's leafier. And this is also what they make kimchi out of, so the tall, leafy cabbage. So that's what I'm using. It calls for a big bunch of kale. And last week when I made soup, I used this organic frozen kale. I love it. It's just picked fresh, farm fresh, chopped up, frozen. It's organic. And I love this, the Life Smart brand. It's a new brand that we're seeing more and more at Food Basics. I also have the Life Smart tomatoes because there are no added sodium, which is also good for us. Keep our sodium levels down. I have 2 potatoes that I've chopped up, and the rest of it we're going to see as we go along. So like I said, I've already sauteed the celery, 2 celery stalks, 2 carrots, onions, and 4 garlic cloves with a little bit of drizzle of olive oil. And what we're going to do is we're going to assemble the rest of the ingredients, and then we're going to put a lid on it, and we're going to put it on the stove. We're going to cook it for about 45 minutes or so to 55 minutes, depending, I'm thinking, how big you've cut up your potatoes. So I've diced mine relatively small. You can see there's a handful. And so mine will cook for sure in 45 to 55 minutes. I've pre-chopped up about 3/4 of the cabbage already. So let's just go ahead and put everything in, and then in the end I'm going to show you what they used for spices. So I'm actually going to add all the cabbage that I chopped up. You need a very big pot because it's going to be full. When the cabbage cooks, just like the kale cooks, it's going to become more condensed, of course. We find the same thing if we cook spinach. When it shrivels, it shrinks. It doesn't, the volume gets a lot smaller. You can see they're calling for Savoy cabbage. You can see it takes up almost half of the pot. And this is probably about, at least a 13-liter pot. So you need a big pot to begin with. Now, I'm going to put the beans in next. The beans, what we should do with the beans is we should make sure that they're drained and well rinsed because we want to get any of the excess sodium also out. So 2 cans of beans and a large can of diced tomatoes, like I said. I also have the no added sodium, the Life Smart version. And for fun, what I've done is I have bought the can that has the herbs and spices already in it. I thought it would be great to add a little bit more flavor. Why not? And again, like I said, we need all of the liquid from the tomatoes. That's fantastic. Now, I'm going to add my 2 chopped potatoes. The other thing, to preserve the nutrition, I try to use my vegetable brush and just clean it under running water and keep the skin on, and then I chopped it up and used the skin. I love that idea. Oh, this is getting so full already. Now, I can't imagine being able to put fresh kale in this pot. This is a big, huge recipe. So, in other words, I think at this point, the frozen kale is coming really in handy. And like I said, when this cooks, it's going to simmer down and reduce because the cabbage is very leafy. So we have 3 tablespoons of the nutritional yeast. Like I said, it's high in protein and B12. This, like I said, would not be part of a traditional Italian recipe. The interesting thing, it also has a bit of a cheesy flavor to it. So it will be really delicious. Now we need 6 cups of vegetable broth. So this Campbell's vegetable broth has slightly less than a liter, so that would be 4 cups. So you need about 1.5 of these. Again, when you're looking for your vegetable broth, look for something that says no added salt. Because when you're buying different bouillons, whether it's chicken bouillon or vegetable broth, you'll see that the sodium tends to be really high. Read the labels. You want something that's below 15% daily value when you're looking at the label. This is 1% sodium. So 1% of your daily recommended intake from 1 serving size. Anything 5% daily value or lower is low, low, low. So 5% is low, 15% is significant. So read the labels, especially when you're purchasing broth that's pre-made. So like I said, we need about 1.5. And then for the spices that we use. Now we need some red chili peppers. You could probably use fresh. If you're lucky, you have some fresh in your garden. I have some dried here. Only, if you're using dried, only about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So very small amount. I like to take it in the palm of my hand and then I pinch it and roll it and try to crumble it as I'm adding it. And that's it. I always believed start out with less. You can always add more later once it simmers and reduces. The other thing the recipe calls for is 1 bay leaf, ta-da, and some rosemary. Whoops, so I don't want the whole stem. I have taken some rosemary from my garden. This is a perfect time to do it. If you have some fresh stalks of rosemary growing in your garden, what I like to do is cut them in long because they grow long stems. And then I hang them upside down in my storage room and just let them dry. And then that way I end up like this with a good healthy sprig of fresh dried rosemary. And it's fantastic because you can use it, and come Christmas time when you want to, say, roast some potatoes or add it to your roasted turkey, then you have some rosemary that's, garden fresh. So easy to do. So I'm adding a bit of rosemary. So if you're not really a big fan of rosemary, don't worry, add a little. If you like rosemary, add a little bit more. I'm probably using equivalent to about a teaspoon of the dried rosemary, which is a very common Italian flavor. So there we go. I'm going to post the recipe up in its entirety so you can see what we need for ingredients and the volumes. And all we have to do now that it's assembled, throw it back on the stove, cook it, not a really huge rolling boil, but just simmer it 45 to 55 minutes and you're ready to go. Like I said, it's always better the next day. So thank you for joining me. And if you have a chance, go to my YouTube channel, Ace Nutrition, and subscribe today. Thank you.